Hey folks, welcome to the Nutshell Brainery Industrial Compound, as it were. Hey, I hope you're having a great week so far and that everything is going swimmingly for you. And I hope you're enjoying the cooler weather. That's pretty slick. At least I think it's pretty nice because I like cooler weather. My wife and I are really fond of autumn, of fall. In fact, our daughter's middle name is Autumn. And so, with all the leaves turning and the temperatures getting cooler and so forth, we are loving it. Okay, you know what? Let's go ahead and let's kind of introduce what we're talking about today. Industrial Revolution. Okay, now we're not going to talk about the Industrial Revolution per se, right? I mean, you know all about it. You studied it in high school and you've got all kinds of context for this, and that's great. That's really great. Once again, not a history class. We're going to talk about how the Industrial Revolution kind of influenced business thought. After all, this course is Foundations of Business Thought. And we're going to see how this business thought is affecting us and business and the economy today. All right? So, in many ways, we are going through a second, maybe even third, industrial revolution. We're going to talk about this. Okay? So, with that, I'm going to come on over to this camera. Let's do this camera. And let's go ahead and start playing with this. So, we're going to be talking about a lot of readings today. Just a real quick heads up. 2 of them are the readings assigned to this module, so you're going to recognize them. Democracy, Science, and Industrialism. And then the Industrial and Social History of England. Okay, remember, not history. But we're also going to kind of harken back to some previous readings. So you're going to see some ideas sort of come together. So just a quick heads up on that. Okay, so the effects of the Industrial Revolution, the industrialization on business philosophy. Let's play with this. Okay, so real quick, just by way of a reminder, the way work was done was everybody worked out of their home. Everybody worked out of their home for ages and ages and ages and ages. All right. And they'd set up their looms. They'd go out and they'd get all the wool from their sheep, or maybe they'd buy wool. Remember, we have trade going on. And they'd set up looms in their home and spinning yarn and all that sort of stuff. And everybody would work out of their home. So some people out of their home would raise the wool. Some people out of their home would make the yarn. Some people out of their home would put this through looms to make fabric, and some people out of their home would take that fabric and make it into clothing. So we had all kinds of specialization going on, but everything was out of people's homes. Okay? So, with that as a context, spinning jennies, these are things that made the yarn and fabric and so forth, could be easily used in the household of a weaver. But the later spinning machines were so large and cumbrous that they could not be used in a dwelling house and required so much power and rapidity of motion that human strength was scarcely available. Okay, now I want to remind you, not a history class. This is going to come back to you here momentarily. All right, so expand your brain, right? Okay, so we've got people doing stuff in their home, spinning jennies, making yarn, making fabric. But then we're making great big, huge machines. We're making factories now. And you know what? You can't put a factory machine in your home. You have to actually go to the factory, right? My wife works as a rad tech. She takes x-rays, and she said, I'd love to work from home today, but of course she can't because she has a great big, huge, multi-million-dollar X-ray machine that she has to use. So she goes to the factory, a clinic. Okay? All right. So everybody is now moving out of their homes to go to these factories to work with these great big machines that are not powered by, people pumping on a thingamahoozy down on the floor, but powered by most often water mills and eventually steam, things like that. Okay, so with that in mind, the new industry required bodies of laborers working regular hours under the control of their employers and in the buildings where the machines were placed and power provided. So they're moving out of their homes and going to the factories during regular hours where they can be watched by managers and work on these big, huge thingamahoozies. Okay. So here's our first question to start getting these light bulbs going nuts. Where are we seeing this dynamic play out today? Both resistance to leave the home to go to the factory and people wanting to be in the factory or not and so forth. How is this changing? It is changing in a lot of ways today. This dynamic is happening afresh. Let's see what you guys come up with, okay? Where are we seeing this sort of dynamic happening today? Okay, let's talk about this a bit. So Maximus, yeah, you've got the immediate one, right? And it makes a lot of sense. So right now we have a lot of here, let's go ahead and hit a light bulb. We've got a lot of people who during the pandemic were working from home. And now that the pandemic is over, there's this desire among many companies to bring people back, okay? This is I want you to think about this dynamic for a moment. So why are companies encouraging, oh, puppy. I have a puppy down here and she just ran over some of my cables. My monitor went out for a second. Anyway, why are companies requiring employees to come back? Because they're not factories. you got a laptop at the office, you have a laptop at home. We are in a situation where you're not getting efficiencies in terms of labor by bringing people back to the office. So play with that idea for a moment. Why are companies requiring people to come back? And yeah, Jackson, you're right. Big corporate companies. So I have close friends who work over at Adobe, and Adobe is requiring people to come back. I have friends and family who work at Goldman Sachs, and they're requiring people to come back. Happening all over the place, okay? Now, Maximus points out a few of the reasons, right? So let's take a look at these. There's a few reasons. One is commercial real estate investment. They need to justify the investment. This is true, and we're going to come back to the rest of your reasons, but let's play with this. Okay, so on a company's balance sheet, the building, the actual physical location, it shows up as an asset. However, investors want to see that asset is producing value, producing wealth. And if the asset, a building, is empty, it's not producing wealth. And so it just sits as a cost on the balance sheet, and companies can't abide that, right? Second, that you point out is a decline in employee quality due to lack of in-person training. Okay, let's play with this. In some businesses and with some people, productivity has actually increased with people working at home, okay? However, one thing that has really decreased, and Maximus, you're on the nose about this, is there's no job shadowing. There's no shoulder-to-shoulder training or mentoring. Truth is, we actually grow a lot in our positions by working with other people and learning how they do it and sharing insights and knowledge and best known methods. And when you're working from home, you're not getting this. And so this bothers companies a fair amount. Julie points out, I want to bring that out. Where are you? There you are. Okay. Julie points out camaraderie, office camaraderie, right? Yeah, totally. Let's bring this up over here. Pop out chat. Yes, that way I can see it better. The truth is, some companies and some professions, you just do better when you're collaborating and working together. It depends on the profession. It depends on the job. But yes. Now, I'm going to point out one more. And this is going to sound cynical, but I stand by it. By the way, we deserve another light bulb there. So managers, hang on a moment. Rosie, go on out. Rosie's looking at me like, no, I think I'll just stay right here. She doesn't listen to a thing I say. Managers like to manage. And managers get nervous if they can't see what their employees are doing. And so there's this tension of, are they really productive? I don't think they're productive unless I'm watching them and so forth. So that kind of comes down to corporate culture there. Okay. Now, you guys just pointed out a whole bunch that are rooted in the pandemic, but I would like to offer an additional way that we kind of see this happening. Chime in. We've got 10 folks here or so. Who here has done gig work? Right? Maybe you make something at home or so forth. By the way, Shane points out real quick, micromanager lost their minds. Isn't it true? It is so true. Yes. Yeah, absolutely lost their minds because they couldn't see what everyone was up to and doing. There we go. I got so much happening here. This is cool. Okay, so Bridger, you've done some sort of gig work and so forth. As you know, I have Nutshell Brainery. This is a home business. Another student, she has Canyon Creations Jewelry. And so she makes jewelry out of home. That's what that little, here, I'll show it to you again. Canyon's Creation Jewelry. I had her make, here I am. I had her make this keychain for me because I wanted some old looking keys for some object lessons. And so I had her make that for me. I actually asked her to make it look rough and rustic, just so you know. When she makes other jewelry, it's really, really, really nice. Shane has, right? Excellent, excellent. So here's the thing about gig work and so forth is a lot of it can be done from home. The wonderful thing, there's a lot of awful things. So we're not going to worry about the awful things right now. Not part of the lecture. The wonderful thing about the internet and connectivity and so forth is that it has democratized a lot of work. So I can build this studio here in my home and so forth. I can get my green screens going and so on. And I can produce videos and podcasts and articles and case studies from here. I can do it from home. You can drive for Uber. You can work for Fiverr. You can work for Thumbnail. You can go ahead and start up your own small businesses. In other words, all of this technology has allowed people to leave the factory, come back home, and actually produce value out of the home. And a lot of the advantages that were part of the factory, which is, hey, all the power is here, that's not the case anymore. So we're seeing a lot of this going on. Okay, let's come on back to our stuff. Let's push this button. Yeah, we're going to push that button. Okay, so, all right. Now, during all of this, there's a lot of companies coming up, a lot of these factories, and there's this question of how much should government be a part of this? How much should government regulate these factories, set the rules, set the standards, and so forth? And from this bubbled the philosophy of laissez-faire, all right? Now, there are multiple, we've been talking throughout these lectures about a whole variety of principles, 5 principles of capitalism. We've talked about the profit motive, free market, capital, private capital. And now we're talking about the 4th one, which is laissez-faire. Let's talk about laissez-faire. Thus, the structure of regulation of industry, which had been built up in the 16th and 17th centuries, or which had survived the Middle Ages, was now torn down. Okay, let's talk about what this means. Remember, in the past, the way they got work done was you were either forced to do it as a slave or indentured servant or what have you, or it was a family tradition. Remember, Schiffbauer means shipbuilder, which means my ancestors made ship. You had no choice but to do that. But then we introduced the idea of free market. You can do whatever you want to do. Nobody is telling you guys what you must do for a living. It's a free market. So that means that all the old ways of doing things have been broken down, in that you can't tell somebody your last name is Smith, so you're a blacksmith, or you're a slave or an indentured servant, you're going to do this work, that's it. It's now way open, okay? All right, so what does that mean for us? The use of powers of government to make men carry on their economic life in a certain way, to buy and sell labor and to hire, manufacture and cultivate, export and import, only in such ways as were thought best by the nation, seem to be entirely abandoned. Okay? So, remember, in the past, Government and these controls of command and control and tradition and so forth, they were making all the decisions about who could manufacture what and how much it could be sold for and so forth. But all these things are out now with the Industrial Revolution. And so the question is, how do we run things? Well, we run it through laissez-faire. According to this theory, all right, let's look at laissez-faire. According to this theory, economic adjustments follow certain natural laws which can be depended upon to work for the ultimate advantage of humanity. And these laws should be allowed to function without interference. Okay, now, let me first translate that, and then we're going to challenge it. We're going to examine it, okay? What it means, essentially, is if you just leave things alone and don't interfere with regulations and so forth, then everything will work itself out in the most optimal way possible. Just leave it alone, okay? So, as we look at this, that's the dog again. Natural laws. Now, it's kind of interesting that the author here would use the term, that economic adjustments follow certain natural laws. What do people tend to mean when they say natural? When you say that something is natural, what are you inferring? Throw that in the comments there real quick. When somebody says this is natural, what are they trying to infer there? What are they trying to suggest? Natural food, natural this, natural that. What are they inferring? The puppy is really curious in here today. Yes, you are. See, now, I tend to think that when somebody says natural, they're meaning good, wholesome, superior to artificial. There's natural flavor and there's artificial flavor, and there's a natural way of doing things, and there's a constructed, construed way of doing things. So I think the author here is saying natural laws, that these are superior because they are naturally occurring. Goes on to say these natural laws can be depended upon to work to the ultimate advantage of humanity. Jackson, untampered. That's a good way of looking at it. I like that one. Isn't it interesting that they would say can be depended upon to work to the ultimate advantage of humanity? What kind of hyperbole is that? Check out that rhetoric. I mean, that's strong stuff. So obviously the authors here are speaking as strong proponents of laissez-faire because they're natural laws that can be depended upon to work to the ultimate advantage of humanity. All right? Well, continuing on, these laws should be allowed to function without interference, which basically means no regulation, no government regulation. Now, laissez-faire kind of exists on this continuum of laissez-faire on one side, which means leave it alone. Laissez-faire, by the way, is French. C'est français. C'est un mot de français. And it means leave be, leave alone, okay? So you got laissez-faire on one extreme, and you got authoritarianism on the other end, authoritarian. Meaning we make all decisions and force them upon you with extreme prejudice. Democracy, the democratic way, is there in the middle, just to kind of put it in context of other modes of thought. Now, And I want to give you an example of where laissez-faire actually works in the natural environment. I can't show this video because I'll be flagged and so forth, but there's a really fascinating video, how wolves changed rivers, online that you ought to take a look at. And the idea is this, is that, okay, back in the early days of Yellowstone, there were wolves around as well as elk and wildebeest and not wildebeest, buffalo, bison, right? Okay. Wolves were there too, but the ranchers didn't like the wolves because the wolves kept eating their livestock. I get it. So they wanted to introduce regulation. By the way, you should know, I'll just come back here. Everybody loves regulation. Everybody hates regulation. The question is, what are you trying to regulate? So people love regulation if it helps them, and they hate it if it hurts them. The ranchers wanted to regulate wolves, as in wipe them out. So they wiped out all the wolves from Yellowstone. Well, a couple decades back, the decision was made to reintroduce wolves to Yellowstone. And the effects were incredible, okay? Now, they actually changed the rivers. How? Well, they talked about how, wolves were all part of this ecosystem, and the existence of the wolves changed the ecosystem. As a result, what happened was, wolves ate more of the elk and the buffalo and so on and so forth. And so the elk and buffalo stayed up in higher ranges, and it changed their behavior. And small saplings that were always eaten because the elk and buffalo were just all over the place, these saplings were allowed to grow and to bring in birds and so forth. And through a whole series of this, and this, you start to have beaver increasing in numbers, and the beaver are out there and they're making dams and so forth. And since the elk and buffalo aren't eating all the grass and vegetation down around the rivers because that's where the wolves are, the rivers change in direction because they, erode the soil differently, yada, yada, yada. Point is, in a natural ecosystem such as Yellowstone, if you leave things alone, put the wolves back in the way they should have been, leave things alone, the ecosystem takes care of itself, and there's this perfect balance, okay? Working to the ultimate advantage, right? I sure like to know why that's doing that. Anyway, okay. So, wonderful, fantastic, marvelous, right? Well, here's the deal. Remember something that Ed Ing said. This was in week 1. Ed says, physics and math are sciences, but business and engineer are applications of science. They use the laws discovered elsewhere for their own reasons. Sometimes there is a danger in using an application without understanding the source. Without keeping the source of an idea in one's mind, it's easy to make false associations. What's he mean by that? He means, listen, just because laissez-faire works in a natural ecosystem, nature, and so forth, doesn't mean that business and an economy operate in the same way. You're taking an application from one system and applying it to another, and you don't necessarily know that that makes a connection. So let me show you what I mean. These are memes that you see every once in a while, right? They're baloney. Now, I want to be clear. I love animals, okay? I was raised, I'm not making this up. I think I've shared this with you before. I was raised on a hippie commune. I spent part of the weekend capturing spiders in my garage to take outside. I can't kill them. I don't kill animals. I can't. Now, by the way, if you hunt, I'll eat animals all day long. Bring me your venison. But I can't do it. I love animals, right? But there's this thing called anthropomorphizing, which is applying human traits onto animals or vice versa, right? These things saying some animals are better than humans, the story of lions that chased away some men to save a little girl, that didn't happen. And then this quote, if having a soul means being able to feel love and loyalty and gratitude, then animals are better off than a lot of humans. Oh, that's so sweet. But I got news for you. Animals are animals, okay? They are they're wicked things, right? Here, nature is amoral, which means it's neither moral nor immoral. It's just nature, just does what it does. If you want to know of all the animals in the animal kingdom, which ones kill their own kind the most, humans kill their own kind 2%, all right? Whereas meerkats are just homicidal things. Meerkats kill each other all the time. New Zealand sea lions, oh my gosh. If a new male lion comes in, decimates all the cubs, so on and so forth. That picture over there it is, far. That's the cuckoo bird. Do you know what the cuckoo bird, actually the one in the nest is the cuckoo bird. Cuckoo birds are interesting. So what a cuckoo bird will do, a mommy cuckoo bird, so she's great with egg, right? Mommy cuckoo bird, great with child. I got to lay this egg somewhere. Does a cuckoo bird build a nest? Hell no. Cuckoo bird will find the nest of a reed warbler. That tiny little bird up there is the reed warbler. And she'll lay her egg in the nest of the reed warbler and then take off. That mommy's gone. So then what happens? Well, this cuckoo hatches first. And the cuckoo's a big, burly baby. And the cuckoo will take the reed warbler eggs and push them out of the nest. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Watch a video sometime of a cuckoo chick pushing other eggs out of the nest. Quite something. And then the cuckoo sits there as the only chick in the nest. Well, the reed warbler mommy, she doesn't know anybody. She's a bird, okay? She doesn't know any better. So she's feeding that cuckoo like no end, and she raises the cuckoo like it's her own offspring, and eventually the cuckoo takes off. Okay. Does that make cuckoos bad? No. It's nature. But now here's the thing, it's laissez-faire. Let everybody do as they will, and it'll work to the ultimate advantage of humanity? Not necessarily. Whereas animals don't have morals and ethics, it's just survival. In our business, we like to think that our employers and employees and our governments follow morals, laws, rules, and ethics, right? So there is a place for regulation. But now this is where the dynamic gets messy. Both sides of the aisle want to regulate different things, but they want to deregulate different things. And so it becomes a real struggle to figure out what to regulate and what to deregulate. Okay, let's go on. That's laissez-faire. And now I think it is time for a juggling break. There you are. We're going to do a juggling break. So I got to get up for a minute and move. Those pictures that you saw that come up when the juggling break thing comes up, those are pictures of me when I was living in France. So during my, and get up and move, guys. Get up and move, stretch around, get that blood flowing. So when I was in my junior year so I lived My mother lived in England, and during the summers, all through my junior high and high school, I would go off and live with my mother in England. And then during my junior year of high school, I moved to France and went ahead and went to a French high school out there. And so all those pictures are of me in France, juggling, doing stuff, and so on and so forth. If you want to learn to juggle, let me know, and I'll put together like a 10-minute live stream. It is really easy to learn. Trust me. I know it looks complicated, but it's really not. It's to learn to juggle the basic forward cascade. Oh, there I go. I finally dropped one. The forward cascade, just like this, really easy to learn. And then you can do a reverse cascade, and you can do under the arm, and then you can do Mills Mess, and all kinds of things. They have different names, obviously. I don't know a tenth. I don't know a 1% of the different things you can do, but I know enough that I could teach you, and it's fun. It's fun stuff. Oh, good. Okay, good to get moving there. Okay, let's get back and let's see what time. Yeah, we're looking good on time. We're looking good on time. So let's come back on over here. Whoa! Disappear. Green screens are amazing. Okay. So the Industrial Revolution also created this circumstance in which people started to reject the old world thinking brought on by religion and so forth. And the theory of evolution came about, Darwin and so forth. And so people started to look at the world a little more critically and skeptically to try to discover new things, right? So it says here from the reading, by removing man from his smug post at the center of the universe, it gave him a sounder view of the physical universe and a better sense of proportion. So let's talk about what that means. All right. So in the past, where, religion said this is the way you think because this is what you should do. You're at the center of the universe because God created the earth and everything's around it and so on and so forth. Now it's, you know what? Mankind is just an animal, just like all the other animals. And we need to kind of figure out this environment and how we fit into it. And so, as it says here, the method of scientific investigation stiffened his system of thought, skepticism, as Huxley pointed out. Skepticism was no longer a sin, but a virtue. Okay, so in the past, if you were skeptical, if you were critical, if you challenged an idea bestowed upon you by, say, a church or some, religious body, skepticism wasn't really that cool. It wasn't really cool to be skeptical of something that you had been told is right and true and real. But now people are examining things and they're critiquing, and it became a virtue to examine and critique. Now, let's get some more light bulbs, okay? I want to pause for a moment and I want to ask, why is challenging something, critiquing something, being skeptical of something, how can this be a virtue? Tell me, what is the benefit that we derive, that you derive? I'm talking about you, not the royal you. what's the virtue? What is the benefit that you derive from skeptically analyzing, critiquing, and questioning something? Why is this a virtue rather than a sin? So let's play with that for a couple of minutes and see what we come up with. Okay, I'm seeing some great stuff here, so let's play with it. So right away, Maximus says, because it irons out inefficiencies in the process, it's important not to become complacent and no longer strive for something better. Absolutely. It's, if you hit the peak, expand. I really like this, okay, is you should always challenge the current state and the status quo, because as good as it is, it can always be better. As successful as you are, it can always be better. As much fun as you're having, you can always have more fun. There's always more, right? And by not accepting things at face value, you can find inefficiencies, you can find opportunities, and you can improve things. I really like it, right? And this is why the Dark Ages, at least for Western Europe, were pretty dark, because nobody was critiquing, nobody was analyzing, nobody was skeptical or looking for ways to, it's just the way it is, right? Very good. People thought the horse was the best way, to travel, right? Until you could find an alternative. I like it. Bridger says, when we change something, when we challenge something, things use skepticism when analyzing, we can better understand what is trying to be said. Okay, I like this a lot, right? So sometimes, well, I don't know if, I still have a microphone going there. So, to challenge, to get at things, to really delve deeper, you can better understand what somebody's saying. You can better understand what the meaning is. You can better understand what is trying to be conveyed and so forth. I like it. I like it a lot. Okay, very good. Jake says, I think of so many people mocked Elon Musk about the electric car and how far Tesla has come. And yeah, okay, very good. I'm not. Elon Musk is one of those people that if I saw him walking down the street, I would cross the street to avoid him. Nevertheless, it cannot be understated what Tesla did for the electric car, challenging the status quo. So I don't even know that you can watch the documentary anymore because the documentary is so dated that it's almost an embarrassment. But there was a documentary some time back called Who Killed the Electric Car? You know, the electric car was introduced sometime like during the 80s or so. And it was basically a test run and so on and so forth. And then one day, all the electric cars were gone. The company, I forget, it was GM or somebody, pulled all the electric cars and killed the electric car. And so this documentary goes on to say, who killed the electric car? Is this grand conspiracy of who's trying to make sure the oil stays in business. Well, today, I don't know that you can watch the documentary anymore because it's embarrassing, because it's now it would be who killed gas, right? Who killed the gas-powered vehicle. I love it. I love it. Okay, very good, guys. All right. And knowledge based on human authority was replaced by that rooted strongly in careful investigation, observation, and logical induction. So, whereas in the past, a power from on high would say, I bestow upon you knowledge, and you can't question it, you can't doubt it. It's prima facie dogma, right? Now people are saying, I'm going to investigate myself. And so they're developing new knowledge based on careful investigation, observation, logical induction. And we are going to see this play out very soon, especially as we talk about the science of management coming up. Right now, management is just basically the whip. All right, that's how you manage people. A whip and a stick. Where's the carrot? Carrot, I don't need no stinking carrot to manage people. We're going to start to see that replaced by the scientific method. Okay, good. So by seeing the world and by taking thought about it, man increased his intellectual independence and his mental stature. So in other words, he's going to now bring this thought, this power of thought to business. The laissez-faire view of government was all but, by all appearances, becoming entirely dominant. Okay. Now here's the thing. This had an effect, and some positive, some negative. It's kind of like right now what we're doing with AI. Is AI good or bad? It depends, right? It's going to have a positive effect for some, a negative effect for others, mixed for others still. Well, this sense of laissez-faire and this new sense of business was having a similar effect. And we're going to think about this with AI for a moment, right? Remember, not a history class. Even among those who were supposed to have reaped the advantages of change of the time, many unpleasant phenomena appeared. Okay, check this out. Check this. And I want you to think about you starting your own business from home, okay? We're going to be talking about what looks like history. I want you to pretend that you are starting your own business from home. Right now, put yourself into that mindset, okay? Because farmers are independent business people working from home, okay? So check this out. The farm laborers were not worse, perhaps were better off on average in the matter of wages than those of previous generation. So you've got your business from home. I have this business from home. I have Nutshell Brainery. Hey, check out this cool shirt. Be curious and keep learning. Yay, I have a business from home. You know what? You notice I even quit my day job. Because most businesses from home, you can actually earn more working for the man. Now, I know. We all have heard the stories, and they're on the front page of every magazine. We don't have magazines anymore, Lon. Get with the times. Okay, they're on the front page of every website you visit of all the people who started businesses and are now mega rich. Okay. But by and large, on average, if you start a business from home, you're going to work twice as hard for half the pay. So, now, by the way, that's not a bad thing. Hold on. I see people dropping off. Don't drop off. There's nothing wrong with working twice as hard for half the pay. So, hang on. The farm laborer were not worse off, perhaps better off on average in matter of wages. So they left the farm and went and worked in the factories and earned more money. Great, right? Yeah, maybe not. But they were more completely separated from the land than they had ever been before, more completely deprived of those wholesome influences which came from the use of even a small portion of land, and in the incitement of thrift that comes from possibility of rising. Okay. Oh, what did that just say? It said it's okay to work twice as hard for half the pay. Because it's your land, it's your work. You get to make all the decisions. You have to pay all the prices, but you also reap all the benefits. And if you find a better way of doing something, the possibility, the incitement to thrift that comes from possibility of rising, if you find a better way to do things, if you are efficient, you get the benefit. You get the possibility of rising. Right now, where you are, and you find a cool way of doing something better, faster, cheaper at work, and you implement it, or you tell your bosses whatever, you implement it, you don't get more money. Your boss, the company, gets more money. Okay? If I am a better professor, and here's a real example. Okay? So I'm gonna play with this for a moment, all right? So there are a handful of really good professors, actually. In the business department, we have more than a handful. In business and marketing, we have some great professors. Okay, so if you're a great professor, that means your classes fill up. So that's awesome. That's awesome. But now check this out. If you're a meh professor, your classes don't fill out. But you're paid the same. If I am teaching, let's just say 5 classes, I teach more, but if you teach the minimum 5 classes, and I have 25 people, 25 students in every class, 5 times 25, that's 125 students. Okay. But there's another professor who's not as good. I'm just saying this hypothetically. And they're teaching 5 classes, but they only have 10 students in every class. That means they have 50 students. So this professor, who's not as good and not as popular, has 50 students. This professor, who is better and more popular, has 125 students. They are paid the same. Okay? Now, in the case of Salt Lake Community College, I'm fine with this, right? But here's the point. If you have your own business and you're popular and people are signing up and you find better ways of doing things, you get the benefit. As it is right now, as an employee, Salt Lake Community College gets the benefit. Now, by the way, I'm fine with this. I'm totally good. But this is the phenomena that they're talking about here. Okay? So this is why people are willing to work twice as hard for half the pay, because there is that opportunity that they want to take advantage of. Okay? So remember, here, let's come back over here. This kind of creates the first of two classes that we still struggle with today. We're seeing strikes all over the place. We have the writers' strike. The writers' strike just ended. We have the actors' strike. The actors' strike is still going on. We have the automotive strike that just started up. And now just started up today is Kaiser Permanente. 7,500 workers, I think, are striking. So there's a clash between the bosses, capital, corporations, and the employees. By the way, Marksman says, is that solely related to money? Emotional reward and fulfillment, you're getting 2 light bulbs for that. Yes, emotional reward and fulfillment, absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, even if you don't plan on running your own business in the long term, I strongly encourage you to start some sort of business, some sort of gig work, something, so that you can learn about business from a different vantage point. And don't worry about, hey, I need to find a business that'll be successful. It won't be successful. I promise you. On this date, someday in October, at close to 11 a.m., promise you that your first business will fail. Knowing that it'll fail, just learn. Just learn. And if you learn the business side from inside a business running it, you're going to be miles ahead of anyone else. Okay. Back to our regularly scheduled program. Since the erection of operation of the factories depended on 2 things, factories depend on 2 things. Money for the building and maintenance. So you got to have money to build the factory, right? And mill hands, the employees, to operate the power looms. England soon found herself with 2 new major classes in society, that representing capital, that represented labor, and the employer and the employed. Yeah, it's the same thing today, right? There are people rich enough or can get enough investment funds to build the company, but a company of building that's empty without workers is useless, so we need to hire workers. So workers need people to build businesses, and businesses need workers to make that business money. So you need each other. But don't think for a moment that just because you need each other equally, that power's equally distributed. We're going to talk about this in future lectures, okay? So the industrial workers finally organized themselves into trade unions, to fight battles and so forth. And we're seeing these unions happen today. By the way, the longer... So, I am pro-union only because I know that corporations are pro-corporation. Pro-investor. Corporations are required to maximize the wealth of investors. That is what corporations do. They're practically required by law to maximize the return of investors' investments. I know corporations are pro-corporation and they will do anything they can to maximize profits. And that's cool. But the biggest cost to a corporation is labor, which means they will do everything they can to reduce the cost of labor. All right? That's just the way it is, which means unions should do everything they can to maintain the value of labor. Okay. Couple quick quotes about laissez-faire just to show that there's two sides to it. The man who accepts laissez-faire doctrine would allow his garden to grow wild so that roses could fight it out with weeds and the fittest might survive. Well, trust me, my garden is not laissez-faire. I go after those weeds. I control it with draconian measures. On the other hand, if one rejects laissez-faire on account of man's fallibility and moral weakness, one must, for the same reason, also reject every kind of government action because it's run by humans and we're fallible, right? Just the way it is. And there you go, everyone. Great work. Great work. Little quiet today. I get it, right? It's fall. It's autumn. We all kind of go into our what's the word? Hibernating. Yes, we're going into a hibernation state. I get it. But we got some good interaction. By the way, Maximus, does this echo the difference between Austrian and Keynesian? Yeah, Keynesian and you're thinking of Hayek. Yeah, Hayek and Keynesian economics. Yes, okay. So everybody, I'm going to give one more there just because it's a great question and I want to get you guys up to 6, right? Okay. Practice some self-love and Google rap battles between Hayek and Keynesian, okay? Rap battles, Hayek and Keynesian, it is hilarious. And yes, we see this dynamic happening between these two schools of thought. Keynesian ethics won out, and that's why we see the world the way it is today. But it's a hilarious rap battle, so it's worth checking out, okay? Hey, send me an email. Let me know you were here. We'll get you your points. And as usual, I'm going to stick around and answer any questions you might have and so forth. But in the meantime, have a fantastic rest of your week. I'll add those points when I get your email. And until we talk again, have a fantastic day.